alone. You are never alone. Just reach into your heart and Allah is always there. You are never alone. You are never alone. Through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace, you are never alone.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Family Issues. In this episode, we'll be discussing the issue of raising our Muslim kids and our children in the West and the problems that they face while raised in the West. We will be happy to receive your phone calls on the numbers that will appear on the screen shortly, and that's 00202 3855 248 or 249. We'll also like to see your intervention via Skype. You can call us at facebook.com/family issues, and our Skype is familyissues.huda.tv, and our email is familyissues@huda.tv. We are very honored to welcome here in this episode Sheikh Zaid Al-Ansari, and he is an American, originally from Gambia. Sheikh Zaid, assalamu alaikum, jazakumullahu khairan, thank you for being here. We also have with us Sheikh Tahir Murian from Germany, and jazakumullahu khairan, Sheikh Tahir, thank you for being here. And allow me to start by you, Sheikh Zaid. Now, many problems must face Muslim parents when raising their kids, their children abroad in the West and in non-Muslim communities. Could you tell us the major problems that parents face?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Raising children in the West is, there's the primary role of the parent is challenged by, where do you educate your child? And so the access to Muslim schools is, it varies from city to city, place to place. There's also the influence of, when you have teenagers or children that are becoming older, you have this constant peer pressure of the core values that you have in your home are often eroded by the peers and the values from the peers. So there's this tension between what's in the house, how much of the world you let in your home, how much of the world do you keep out of your home, how do you protect your children without over-parenting, You want your children to understand the fundamental rules and then let them go and practice the fundamental rules. You don't want to over-parent. So there are multiple layers of different kinds of pressures on Muslim parents and Muslim children in the West because of the conflict between core values of Islam, family, being tahir, being clean, having a moral compass, and the freedom of choice and lack of morality and other kinds of things that conflict with this. So there's this tension that constantly exists between what you tell your children and what you try to bring to your children in terms of core values and what they experience growing up in the West.
Right. And you raised up your kids in the West first before you came to Egypt? Yeah?
I raised up the older set. I have a younger set of children that were raised in the balad of Muslims. Yes. And so they look at their older siblings and they're asking them questions about things that they have no idea about. So it's a very interesting contrast in my house to see the older ones, they'll see or hear something, and the younger ones will have no idea what the concept is. So,
subhanallah.
Yes.
And for sure, we cannot say that it is a rule that if you raise your children in a Muslim community, then they will definitely be more pious than if they were raised in the West, for instance, right? I mean, there is no rule here, right?
There's no rule there.
Right.
There's no rule.
Because
some of the best Muslims that I've ever met in terms of what is,
Aqidah
and taqwa, zahiran, that appears to be, are Muslims that found their Islam in the penal institutions in the West.
Were you born Muslim, Sheikh?
No.
Bismillah, mashallah. So could you tell us quickly, how did you embrace
Alhamdulillah, I found
the greatest religion?
I found my Islam actually by a college roommate who was from West Africa. And I must have looked at this guy for 6 months trying to figure out which of my cousins he looked like. And then we began to talk. And then through the circuitous route of things that happened in America at the time, there was a great upheaval of human rights and civil rights.
That's the 60s?
Yes, 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
America was a citadel at that time, a fortress at that time of racism. And so many African Americans were looking for their primal roots, and literature became available that, 30% of the people that were enslaved and brought to America were originally Muslim in the first place. And then I went to Africa, and very quaint little story. I was in West Africa and went into a shop to buy a suitcase. I had some garments to take back. And I walked into the shop, and there's this old man and his elder son who ran the shop. This old man took a look at me and had a disgusting look and turned and walked away. I was startled. So I asked my friend to find out why this old man's upset with me. Long story short, he came back in 10 minutes, and he was convinced, this old man was convinced, that I was the elder son of his brother who had gone to England to study English. Now, I thought I was too good to speak my own language. So this identity, for me, was confirmed.
Yes. Beautiful. Sheikh Tahir, before we talk about raising our kids in the West, were you born Muslim, or did you?
No, me as well.
Could you tell us about the beautiful story of embracing
it was
the only religion?
Alhamdulillah,
the
yes.
greatest
Alhamdulillah. It was a Turkish friend who was like, in the beginning he was not practicing Islam. He was like me, living the Western modern life. We were like 14, 15, 16 years, teenagers. So he influenced me, I influenced him with bad things, and we left, we were going out and making bad things together, and let's say in this time we thought we have fun and so on. He was a Muslim, but he was not practicing Islam, okay? Right. But and then when I was 18, like there was, I had a German friend, and he died in an accident with a motorcycle accident. So I thought about the death, and I thought about the Christianity. I took some books also about Buddhism, and I tried to find the way. And in these days, I read a book, and I wanted to speak with this Turkish friend about the book what I read about dying and coming back to life, because Buddhism or Hinduism is saying this.
Yeah, it does have
this story, right? So I wanted to ask him what he thinks about, and he told me, I don't want to know anything about this thing. I have Islam, and this is the right religion. So I thought, oh, subhanallah, we spoke about everything, but in this case, he didn't want even to speak and discuss this issue with me. So this was like a point where where I started to
I want to know what this guy is talking about.
What he has, what I don't have. Even he's living the same life as me, but he is telling me he has Islam and this is the right way and this is haqq and so on. So this was like the first milestone in my life. So where I started to think, these people, I already know them before. I knew them before the Muslims, that they are, let's say, more religious than the Christian. But there I saw, I was living with the family, I was visiting them a lot, and so in this case, this was like a milestone. And then he started to pray. He started to pray first Jum'ah, and he was like leaving me, and he was like not going out anymore with me, and he was let's say he didn't went with me to parties and so on. So he tried to be more Muslim, to live, and this was and influencing me a lot, and the major step what he did was like he told me he will not drink alcohol anymore. So I thought this was like a shock for me, because I was raised up in Germany, but my father is from Poland, and the Polish people, they love to drink alcohol. So also me in these days as a teenager, we had this is normal in Europe to drink alcohol and try these things out. So when he told me that he won't drink this anymore, I thought how he can live, this is no fun.
How is this guy so confident? The inner peace he has, the conviction about his religion, and why is he leaving all of these things just for the sake of one God?
Yeah, subhanallah. And I thought in the beginning, okay, he's telling this for 1 week, 2 weeks, and he will come back to me to the party life. But he was straight, and alhamdulillah became more and more religious. So he gave me some books, and alhamdulillah, this was then the reason what changed me. Alhamdulillah, shukran.
When they said the only religion, because Allah says in the holy book, Inna ad-dina inda Allahi al-Islam.
Alhamdulillah.
Sadaqallahu al-azim. Sheikh Tahir, so you were raised in the West, and so was Sheikh Zaid. I mean, I'm not sure, did you have any kids?
Yeah, I have 3 kids.
Did you raise them in the West or in Muslim communities?
No, alhamdulillah. My oldest child was 5 years when he left he left Germany.
Right.
So this was the main reason why I left, actually.
But you must know a lot of your friends who have raised their Muslim kids in Western communities. In your view, what are the main challenges? There must be pros as well. Because, I mean, from another view, if you are a minority in a certain place, then you're more likely to keep your traditions and hang on together. And the mosque is more likely to play a social role as well.
I would say that that there is in Europe, there's no way in between, Here in Egypt or in the Arabic countries, you find sometimes people praying and going to drink shisha or smoking shisha, okay? And going to cinemas or listening to music, but still praying. I think in Europe he didn't practice Islam at all.
Yes.
He knew that this is the right religion, but he didn't pray. He didn't went to the masjid. Maybe he was like, when he was very small, he was forced to do so. But you will not find in Europe a way in between what you find here.
So you must be a little bit surprised by what you found in overall Muslim communities, because there are a lot of non-practicing Muslims. Right?
Yeah, sure. It's not you will not find here like paradise in the Arabic countries. You will not find, and it could be that for some personalities the fitna might be even more bigger, more difficult, and so on. But for me, the main problem was like, when I left my oldest child, he was about 4 years old in this time. I left him in the kindergarten. I brought him before I went to work. I brought my child to kindergarten, and the woman there, she was like she was working there as a teacher, dressed very bad, and the typical European style. So I had really a bad feeling with whom I let my children. and you don't have the possibility, as in, for example, I think in US where you have like Islamic schools or so on. In Germany, you have to stick to the rules, which are governmental schools and governmental kindergartens. You have no chance to bring them to like Islamic school, private schools. It doesn't exist there. So this was the main reason why I left this country. Not even because of me. Because I thought I can, for example, I can handle it, inshallah, bismillah. Sure, I'm also influenced. And maybe even it's somehow positive, as you said, because you try to stick more to your religion, and you see the bad behaviors of the non-Muslims, and you have like something positive. What is saying, look, he is like this because he is a non-Muslim. So, but sometimes here in Egypt or in the Arabic countries, not only in Egypt, you see it could be a bigger fitna for the people, because he's Muslim. Why he's doing this?
I mean, you see a lot of relatives that some of them, let's say, were raised in the West, and they are relatives by some of them raised in the West, some of them raised in Muslim countries, and now 20 or 30 years later, when they are all grown-up men and women, you could find that maybe, at least from my experiences, that those who were lived in the West are more committed for some reason or another, because of the fitna. Indeed, it might be indeed difficult.
Well, it's almost like a law of physics. You don't understand what cold is until you understand what hot is. So it's the contrast. You make a rational choice in the West that this is going to save my life. This Islam, what I think, what I believe, what I feel, what I do, is the difference between physical and spiritual death. So people hold on to their Islam.
And it all depends on the parents, naturally. I mean, the father and the mother, because if they are raising their children in the West and they are not taking them to mosques, they are not teaching them about Quran, about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, about their religion, their traditions, then obviously,
exactly.
I mean, they can't have a link. So, and you could be here in Muslim countries like Egypt, for instance, and you have the parents not praying, not even fasting sometimes. Subhanallah, I mean, it does happen, unfortunately.
But here you have the possibilities. You have more possibilities, as Germany, as Europe, for example. Here you have the possibility to bring the child to an Islamic school, to learn Quran.
Schools, that's what I want to talk about now. So can we say that schools and finding Islamic schools is one of the biggest challenges in the West, Sheikh Zaid?
It's a very big challenge. There are cities that have a significant number of Muslims, both indigenous and immigrant, have the most opportunity to establish schools. But private schools cost.
That was my next question.
It's expensive. So it's depending upon the amount of surplus income and the economic stability of that community of whether it can have a school or not. If you have a school of 30, 40, 50 children, you might have to have a budget of $500,000 a year. Where's that going to come from? It's tuition driven. Parents have to pay, $3,000, $4,000 a month to support that school. And if the composition of the community is you have some well-to-do Muslims, but the majority people are just working, it is extremely difficult to support that school and to send your children.
So what's the solution then? Because in public schools, there will be mixing for boys and girls, even when they are teenagers. There will be problems in the curriculum. There could be a language barrier as well to learning the Arabic, the language of Quran. So what's the solution here?
Community, in my opinion, community development. You cannot build the school without building the community. There has to be Muslim businesses. There has to be Muslim organizations, Muslim lawyers, Muslim doctors who are conscious about the need to support the community school, whether it's private or public. And they have to make a financial commitment to do so. So to have in places like Dallas or Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, where you have Muslim schools, but most of the children in the schools are children of professional immigrants.
Who earn.
You know. And so you have then the other Muslim children who may be indigenous or not, or immigrants, but don't have the same kind of financial foundation, are in the public schools.
So do you feel that the owners of such schools, I don't want to say greedy because that would be a harsh word, but I mean, do the costs have to be so high? I mean, there must be a da'wah element involved here. I mean, I can win, I can make a profit, but the profit could be, you know, a reasonable one.
You're right.
Do you get that sense?
You're right. I do get that sense. I know of a school like that. The last place I lived in the States was Atlanta. Large Muslim community. Several Muslim schools. And the pressure that they had was, if you want qualified teachers, Muslim teachers, they're comparing their salary and what they can get in the market to the Muslim school. So you've got this pressure that, you know, you can hire a committed Muslim for $25,000 a year, or a Muslim who can sell his skills on the market for $45,000. So that kind of tension takes place that drives the cost of the school. And then in the school, you know, it's, you know, many times the school doesn't reflect the whole Muslim community. It reflects the people who can afford it.
That's the case in the U.S., for instance, Sheikh Tahir. In Germany, do you have private Islamic schools?
Yeah,
you have a large Turkish community.
Yeah. There are Islamic so-called schools, but nevertheless, the children, they have to enter the governmental schools. Yani. So this means that you can bring them in the evenings, for example, to learn Quran. But in the morning, they have to go to the governmental school. From 8 to 1 o'clock, they are spending like 5 days, 5 hours in the governmental school. So there's a high influence from like the majority there are like non-Muslims.
And are Islamic schools costly as well, like is
no,
the case in the US or in the UK?
No. This is they are like this are like private schools, and mostly maybe teachers which are doing this for fi sabilillah. So because it's in the evenings,
right?
So they are teaching Quran and so on.
The main curriculum.
So we don't. This is something new. What I heard like from the US, and I didn't know this. So this doesn't exist in Germany. But there's this big disadvantage that I have to bring my children to the governmental school. They are teaching them sexuality from young, and what to do to not getting children, how to make sexuality to not getting children. These things they are teaching them very young, because as you know, the Europeans are starting these things as teenagers with 11, 12 years. So this is totally non-Islamic. You have the swimming. There is like sport to swim. They have mixed, and sports and so on, and they are like sometimes they are traveling for 1 week. So these groups are going out. So there's a very dangerous from the Islamic side.
Sheikh Tahir, do you think it's more challenging to raise a boy or a girl in the West for a Muslim parent?
I think,
or is it equally challenging?
I think there's the same. The boys there are also very bad. And sometimes I think the girls they can stay at home and so on. And sure, you will find everything also with the girls, and you will find a girl going with hijab to school and taking it off in the toilet and without hijab. And
that unfortunately happens in Muslim communities as well.
Sure. Yeah, I know this. I heard this. I'm living now 5 years here, so I heard also a lot of stories. Sure. And it's not easy. Even I see this influence also on my children.
So your elder child is now
11 years old.
11, Bismillah, mashallah. And he must be memorizing.
Alhamdulillah, he's in an Islamic school, but nevertheless, the influence of of dressing and so on, he is also learning a lot of let's say like European or Western style, and he wants to dress only Nike or Adidas and so on. So
it's normal. I mean,
yeah, but actually
it's not necessarily good because we as Muslims and I mean the great leaders in the Muslim world, and they are few, say that we have to make our own medicaments, we have to produce our own weapons, we have to produce our own food, and we have to work more and not spend less, but obviously there are things that are basically a waste of money. I mean, if you can get a shoe for $20 and another one for $200 just because of the name, that's
exactly the point. You know, we wear shoes to protect our feet, not to tell us who we are.
That's the
We
problem.
wear coats to protect and keep us warm, not to tell us who we are. The trend of fashions that affect Muslim children in Muslim countries and in the West, people buy things to announce to the world who they are, not what they have on. And so people have identities wrapped up in values that are completely alien to the teachings of Islam.
SubhanAllah. And it is something challenging. It's also challenging for parents. I mean, what shall parents do in this case, Sheikh Tahir? I mean, it's difficult. You want to, if you're able, you want to, you know, provide your children with what they've asked for. But at the same time, you know that this is too much. You know, maybe you can save some of this money and give it to sadaqah. I mean, because other people cannot even find their own bread. So what do you do in these cases?
In this case, I try to teach my child. I try to tell him, look, it's not like this. Okay, I can buy him these shoes, even it's Adidas or Nike or something like this. But he has to know, as the Sheikh said, that it's not about the value. Maybe we can buy it because of the quality or something like this, but not because to show off.
Yes.
And this is not the reason. I try to tell him, look, we are Muslims, and normally we are not showing off. We are not like mutakabbir. And I don't know in English mutakabbir. Arrogant. So I try to teach them, and I hope that there will come a time when he is understanding, because in this age it's not easy that maybe they understand, but the influence is very high also from the other side.
And we hope there will come a time that all Muslims understand, because even so many grown-ups,
Alhamdulillah,
you know, are really crazy about
but we are living.
off.
I think we are living.
I
now
live in the Gulf. I've seen it. You know.
On that note, Sheikh Zaid.
But we are living now in a good time, and in Islamic revival time. So a lot of, let's say, inshallah, bismillah, we are going forward, and I'm optimistic, and inshallah.
Inshallah, we all are.
Inshallah.
Sheikh Zaid, Sheikh Tahir, dear brothers and sisters, allow us to take a short break. We still have much more to talk about here in this episode, very special episode, an interesting one of family issues. We hope you're enjoying it as much as we are here. Please stay with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Alone, you are never alone.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala choose whom He wills subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy, for His messengership, for the revelation to be revealed. This is not for the human beings to make that decision. If a person would turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, truthfully, asking for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised to forgive. We have as Muslims a duty, and that is to recite the book of Allah, to ponder over the verses, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to act according to the Quran. The mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, but who would this mercy will be for? And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sent to all mankind. So the ummah, or the people of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, are all mankind since the time of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam till the day of judgment. Why waste our life without getting to know every verse in the Quran, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us?
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to a new edition of Ask Huda.
I have two questions.
please go ahead. You can read it in Arabic, and you can also understand the meaning in your own language. The different tafsir and the interpretation of the meanings of the Quran are available in almost every language that exists on earth by the grace of Allah. The water of Zamzam is for whatever intention you drink it with. Salih from Egypt, his father has the way, and he asked about how can he help him. Very good question.
Can we give a zakat to any of the dawah centers?
The ibadah or the act of worship is a part of the unity of worship. It has to be paid to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in accordance with the guidance of His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. In the 20 minutes that we have left here or so in the program, we'll try to focus on how to preserve the structure of the Muslim family in non-Muslim countries. Sheikh Zaid, other than asking your children and playing the role of a role model of reading Quran together, praying together, not letting them watch a lot of harmful movies, and that's difficult to do. What else can we do?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. One of the things that I think is really valuable is leaving some footprint or legacy of what your children remember you by.
Beautiful.
You know, do they hear you standing in Qiyam at night? Do they see you getting up to fast on Mondays and Thursdays? Do they see you doing acts of charity for people that you may not know? I think these were the things that, you know, children listen with their eyes. It's not with their ears. They watch to see what you do, if your words follow your behavior. So they're listening with their eyes. So if you are authentic and have fidelity between your speech and your actions, that reinforces that, yeah, this Islam really makes sense. You know, I see my father, what he's doing. I see my mother, what she's doing. And there's no discrepancy between, there's just a small discrepancy or hardly no discrepancy between what they say and what they do. And I think that's the most important piece. You don't have to be a scholar in your house. You have, you know, you're a human being, and you have shortcomings, you know, taqsir. And they understand that. But it's the fidelity between what you say and what you do that makes the biggest impact on our children.
Subhanallah, barakallah fikum, Sheikh. I really love the thing about the legacy that we as parents should leave to our children. Sheikh Tahir, I know it's hard to follow on such a great advice, but please.
Yeah, subhanallah. No, I completely agree with Sheikh Zaid. It's even the non-Muslims know this, that I was taught even in Europe that children are not doing what the parents are saying. The children are doing what the parents are doing.
Yes.
So they will not listen.
They listen with their eyes. I mean, I love that as well.
Yeah.
Sheikh Tahir, sorry to interrupt you, but we have a brother from Ghana calling us now. And subhanallah, Sheikh Zaid was just telling me at the break that in West Africa there's a big viewership for Huda TV, alhamdulillah. It's Brother Abdullah from Ghana. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Please go ahead. Alaikum assalam, brother.
السلام ورحمة الله. كيف حالكم؟
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Go ahead.
How are you, my brothers in Islam? You know, I always pray for my Muslim Ummah in the Western countries. Wallahi, it's a wonderful case. You see a Muslim girl, she's making herself like an American girl. I stay in the United States, New York, the Bronx, for nearly 8 years. Then I come back home because of my Islam. I need my wife, my boy, my sons. I can't stay there and leave my wife over there. I don't have papers. So as I see the Muslim Ummah in the United States, some of them are good and some are very, very bad. I'm always pray for them. Wallahi. I'm always pray for my Muslim Ummah in the Western country. That's
Alhamdulillah. Brother Abdullah,
share with you.
Brother Abdullah, do you have any question for Sheikh Zaid, who, by the way, an American originally from Gambia, and a well-known, alhamdulillah, figure for our Huda TV viewers, or Sheikh Tahir, who is a German Muslim?
Yeah, the masjid I pray is in 183 and 183.
Yes, brother, we hear you. Go on, go on.
Masjid Ibadur Rahman, 183 and 183 Street, yes. Me and Gambian people, we have we have young girls. Some are good and then some are they just leave their dresses naked. And I told them, try and put good naked, but they refuse. And some of them are very intelligent Muslims.
Yes, brother Abdullah, could you repeat again what you were saying, please, because I'm not sure we got it.
Pardon?
Could you repeat your question, because I'm not sure that we here got it in the studio.
Okay, no problem. Okay, my question is that how can the Americans or Western countries can make a good school for the Muslim Ummah? That's my question.
How can American Muslims?
Yeah, they have good school to attend. They practice their religion.
How can American Muslims be better Muslims, you mean?
Yeah, because I have family in the United States.
How can Islam grow in the United States? And that's the hope of everybody, brother. That's the hope of everybody.
Okay.
That the world's leading nation would be a Muslim ummah. Thank you very much, brother Abdullah. So it will happen one day.
Inshallah. This is what the Prophet ﷺ promised us, that Islam in the end would be victorious. I have seen some very hardcore street people in America. We had a masjid in one of the neighborhoods in America that was in a tough neighborhood, tough neighborhood. And we used to call the adhan on a speaker, a loudspeaker. And this man was the known kingpin drug dealer of the neighborhood. So he pulls up to the masjid one night, gets out of his fancy car, walks up to the door, and I thought there was going to be trouble. And he says, "Who was the guy singing that song?"
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
And we said, "It's not a song." He said, "Well, I don't care what you call it. But was he going to sing that song again?"
Subhanallah.
So we said, about an hour and a half, because it was for Maghrib. For a month, he didn't miss the adhan for Maghrib or Isha.
Subhanallah.
The following month, he took a shahada.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Beautiful story. Beautiful story.
So if we're not ashamed to stand and represent Islam, if we don't try to be modernist and compromise our Islam, people will see exactly that here's something that touched this man. He didn't understand a word of Arabic. But we had a mu'adhin, a young man, very beautiful sound, very beautiful voice. And he thought it was a song. And it touched him in his core, in his fitra. And it brought him to Islam.
Isn't it also true about Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, that it was, hearing Quran that was one of the reasons behind him embracing Islam? Subhanallah, it's Allah's words. Subhanallah. Sheikh Tahir, so the parents are responsible not only for their children at home, but also outside of the home. For parents raising our Muslim kids in the West, what is it that they have to be very careful about when it comes to outside of home activities? I mean, because if you strangle also, I mean, if the grip is too tight, you know, things could break loose. So how do you play the...
Yeah, actually I don't have experience, because I brought my children, alhamdulillah, I brought them out of this society. But what I can imagine is to give them the weapons what they need outside. And the best weapon, what Rasulullah ﷺ said, is like to make dua and to teach them what they have to say, and to teach them that the non-Muslims, the kuffar, will be never satisfied with them. For example, that as Allah said, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَن نَصَارَ حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم. So they have to know this. The problem is that when they are young, they are so influenceable. They don't understand maybe the ayats. They don't understand, and they know this is a friend. They play with him and so on, and he's watching these movies. Why I can't watch these movies? So I can imagine it's really hard, yani. It's really hard. And the worst thing what we, alhamdulillah, what we don't have in the Arabic countries is like it's the kufr itself in Allah, yani, that they don't believe, they say there is no God, yani. So our children, alhamdulillah, even you find Muslims not practicing Islam, but to bring kufr out of their
this
mouth,
is rejected in society.
Alhamdulillah, you will not find this in this environment here, even from let's say Egyptian Christians.
Exactly.
Yani you will not. So they are not learning kufr, yani absolutely kufr. Yani. So they can learn listening to music. They can learn something like
and
this.
even those non-practicers, I mean, maybe people who unfortunately don't even pray, but they would refuse to hear anything, you know, that talks kufr.
Exactly.
That talks kufr. So this is a big
when I first came to Egypt, on my job, it took me several weeks to realize that one of the men that worked in my department was actually a Christian, because his speech, every other time, you know, I would see him, alhamdulillah, masha'Allah, barakallah, and I noticed his name. So I asked a colleague, I said, our friend, he said, yes, you're right. I hear what you're really going to ask. He's a Christian, but he's been so imbued, been so touched by Muslim culture that he doesn't have a problem like you have in the West.
Right. Sheikh Zaid, I mean, the beautiful advice you said about, you know, that you should leave a legacy as a parent, and that kids listen with their eyes, and that you always should do, as Sheikh Tahir also stated, you always should do what you say, reminded me of the ayat, and please correct me here, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون كبر مقتا عند الله أن تقولوا ما لا تفعلون.
Yes.
And this is a very important advice, because that's a common mistake, I guess, we all make.
Yes.
I mean, at certain stages and in certain situations in our lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, that point, it reminds me also of the parenting instruction that we find in Surah Al-Luqman. 4 times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya bunayya. First thing is tawheed, to reject shirk. Second thing is cultivate good character. Third thing is to know that this rububiyyah, this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's responsible for giving us everything that we need. So this parenting is embedded in the Quran.
Yes.
You know?
And this was, of course, Allah's words in Surah Luqman on behalf of Luqman. Ya bunayya aqim as-salah. Ya bunayya لا تشرك the
تشرك
ayat.
بي شيئا.
Yes, the ayat. يا بني لا يا بني لا تشرك بالله إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. And there's also يا بني أقم الصلاة.
نعم.
نعم. Sheikh Tahir, before we go, unfortunately we're almost running out of time. The media, I mean the mass media, the different media outlets that we now have nowadays, I mean it was not there when we were all teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but at least when I was a teenager, it wasn't there. So what do we do with this? Because it's hard to control.
I would like only to say something to the last point where you said that لما تقولون ما لا تفعلون. I remembered a sheikh here in Egypt. He said in the Salatul Jum'ah that it is a very, very big musiba for the child when the father lies to the child, when he says something wrong or he's a liar. It's a very musiba. He's influencing this child. He learns to lie. And this was like impressing me,
and he must lose trust.
Exactly.
So like to tell to the people, to make this dawah also to the Muslims, try to say always the truth to your children, even not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, even not when you are laughing, and even not when you make some jokes. Try to make jokes, but be صادق,
about real things. Don't invent.
Don't
invent things.
Don't invent things, and don't lie. Don't say something with fun what is not the truth. And you try to say always the truth, even if you make jokes. So this is also like an example. Back to the media.
The media outlets. I mean, you have the internet, you have the TV, you have the. And you don't want to strangle again. I mean, you don't want to monitor 24/7, and you cannot do it. And at a certain age, you shouldn't even do it. But how do we
for
set
sure
the rules?
in Europe the media is much worse than here. Here you will find also, let's say, naked woman dancing and bad dressed dancing in the television or something like this. You will find it here, but there you will find much worse things. And also one worse thing is that they are speaking bad about Islam. They are bringing Islam into a bad light. Here maybe you will find you will find also attacking Islam.
Unfortunately, there are some.
In these times, you will find everything, right?
You'll even in our Muslim societies, you'll find some drama attacking people with beards and making fun of Sunnah. Subhanallah.
But the problem there in Europe, let's say, the problem there in Europe, that the people, they feel ashamed that they are Muslims. Even the children or you will feel ashamed if you go to work and you will say, "I'm a Muslim." So you will feel ashamed. This is the worse problem than here.
Fear of isolation.
Fear of isolation. And as the ayah said, وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَن نَصَارَ. They will be not satisfied with you. When I was working there, and they had another lifestyle, and they asked me, what did you do in your weekend? When I told them I was in the masjid. So this was like this was bizarre for them. So they spent the nights and the weekends in discotheques and in parties, and so you are not inside the society. You are also.
I also remember once that I was in the West at the teenage period, and some of my friends asked me, so what do you do? How many times do you pray? So I told them 5 times a day. So everybody goes, what? 5 times a day. I mean, it was for them. It was like
you are a terrorist in Europe when you pray 5 times. So this means that this man is.
I remember being in college, the peer pressure of hiding one's Islam was so dominant, particularly for the Muslims who are like second generation. Their parents had stayed in America and they grew up in America. And I used to come into the library and I'd see them sitting. And I would say salam to them, right? Salam alaikum. And they would say hi. And so I got this idea to bring this to their mind, how dangerous this is.
Proud.
Yes. I used to tell them, hi alaikum.
That's beautiful. And salam means peace, and there's nothing better than peace. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have, dear brothers and sisters, for this episode. Again, I personally enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it as well at home. Many thanks go to Sheikh Zaid Al-Ansari from the US and originally from Gambia, Western Africa, for his presence here. Jazakumullahu khairan. Sheikh Zaid, it's been a pleasure. Barakallahu feekum.
Feekum barakallah.
Wa feekum, Sheikh Zaid. And barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullahu khairan, Sheikh Tahir Murian from Germany, for being with us here. Hope to see you again soon. Dear brothers and sisters, our date is next week, same time, inshallah, here on Family Issues. Another episode of Family Issues. Until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You are never alone, through sorrow and through grief, through happiness and peace. You are never alone. So now, as you long for your past, prepare for your future, but knowing nothing's gonna last. You see, this life is but a road, a straight and narrow path to our final abode. So travel well, O Muslim, and paradise will be your home. And always remember that you are never alone.